5 tips to help you work more effectively and efficiently with your Chinese colleagues, clients, or suppliers. My name is Alastair McTavish. I'm an internationally certified soft skills trainer. I've delivered training to thousands of people in more than a dozen countries. This channel aims to help you to take your soft skills, communication skills, and leadership skills to the next level. Let's jump right in. So 5 tips to help you work more effectively with your Chinese colleagues, clients, or suppliers. Now, I've spent more than 10 years in China. I speak fluent Mandarin. I first went to China in 2004, about 16 years ago. I've worked in Chinese for more than 9 years. I have a Chinese wife. I've started my own company in China. I've hired and managed and trained thousands of Chinese staff. So I have quite a lot of experience in this area. So number 1 tip to work more efficiently and effectively with your Chinese staff is this: understand their core values. When working with people from other countries, the first thing is to understand what are people's core values. So I'm from the UK. So in the UK, our core values are, number 1, fair play. To get a result, most people will follow the rules to get things done. Also, in the UK, British people love to say please and thank you too much. So British people are somewhat over polite. Now, in terms of Chinese culture, Chinese people are very polite, but it's different. In Chinese culture, if you say thank you to a family member, basically that means that you're not close. Okay, I know it is changing a little bit nowadays, but I remember I often tell a story when I deliver trainings in China that if you're Chinese and you're eating with your mum and dad, and you say to your mum, "Mom, pass me the chopsticks." In Chinese, you say, "Ma, 把一双筷子给我." And your mum passes you the chopsticks. And then in Chinese, if you said thank you, like 谢谢, your Chinese mum would say, 家里人不用谢. So that means family don't say thank you. Okay, so understanding the core values. And if you're working with Chinese colleagues, suppliers, if you're managing a Chinese team, if you're being managed by a Chinese manager, then you might find as a British person that Chinese people don't say please and thank you as much. And likewise, if you're from other countries, you might find that Chinese people act in different ways. So I'm going to cover a lot more about this in future videos, but tip number 1 to work more effectively with Chinese people, understand their core values. Tip number 2, Chinese people don't like saying no. As I say, I've spent a lot of time with Chinese people. I've traveled to more than 30 cities in China, done business, delivered trainings in more than 20 cities in China, worked with agents, won millions of pounds of business when I was working as a business development director in Hong Kong, covering the whole of China and Asia. And when you ask Chinese people for something, because of, again, going back to the core values, because of being respectful, because of not wanting other people to lose face or be embarrassed, Chinese people, if they can't help you, the majority do not like saying no. Instead of no, what will they say? They'll say maybe, or I'll think about it, or if you're working with Chinese people, you need to try to read between the lines. When you're not hearing a no, but your instinct is telling you that the person is saying no. Okay, so tip number 2 to work with Chinese people, they don't like saying no, so be aware of it. Tip number 3, when Chinese people say yes, it doesn't always mean yes in a Western sense. When an American, British person, Australian says yes, usually it means, yes, I understand, yes, I will do it. That's crystal clear. However, because in Chinese culture, Chinese communication, traditionally anyway, you often have to read between the lines. Somebody says A, but actually they mean B. And just by the tone of voice or the use of language, you have to try and understand that A doesn't mean A, it actually means B. So when you ask a Chinese person something, when you hear them say yes, don't assume it definitely means yes. Because from a Chinese perspective, yes is like 是我听你说话，但是我不一定明白，我不一定会做. So that means, from a Chinese sense, yes in China means I'm listening to what you're saying. I acknowledge I'm listening to what you're saying, but it doesn't definitely mean I will do it. It doesn't definitely mean I will understand. In future videos, I'll give you tips to get around this. So tip number 4 is have an open environment with your colleagues and team to let them speak up and not worry about mistakes. Because one of the biggest worries in China is losing face. What is losing face? So this is basically being embarrassed in public, embarrassed in a meeting. So this is why you'll find in global conference calls, often Chinese staff and staff from Asia, unless they're very confident, very experienced, very good at English, they will stay somewhat quiet in global conference calls. Whereas colleagues from America, Germany, India, traditionally, they're a lot more outspoken in conference calls. So as a manager, as a colleague working with Chinese people, it's really important to understand this factor that Chinese are worried about losing face and often not that confident in their English. So giving them the opportunity to speak up, emphasizing don't worry about mistakes. This will help you work together and communicate more efficiently and effectively. So tip number 4, tell your Chinese colleagues, clients, it's okay to make mistakes. Tip number 4, this is related again to the concept of not losing face. When working with your Chinese colleagues, especially in public, do not criticize directly. Now, German people, generally, American people have quite a direct style of communication. British people, well, it depends, somewhat indirect, but Chinese people, generally, not all Chinese people, they have a slightly more indirect style of communication. So if you are not happy about something and you say something criticizing a Chinese colleague, a Chinese client, supplier in front of others, this is a big no-no. This is really bad, can make them feel embarrassed, you could ruin your relationship, and they might be really upset and frustrated. So if you are not happy about something, you can give feedback one-to-one in an informal context, for example, in lunch or while walking or something like that, in a more indirect but clear way. Okay, so tip number 5, do not criticize your Chinese colleagues, clients, or suppliers in public in front of others. Use a somewhat more indirect style. There's going to be a lot more videos on how to work with Chinese, doing business in China, also a few tips on learning Chinese. As I say, my Chinese is far from perfect. However, I have worked in the language for more than 9 years and delivered dozens of training in Mandarin. So I hope you found this useful. And if you found it useful, please write in the comments which of these 5 tips you're going to try to use more with your Chinese colleagues, and if there are any other tips that you use to work with Chinese people. Well, one thing I'd like to say is, some people might think, well, not all Chinese people are the same, and I completely agree with you. You can't say these tips work with everyone in China, because you have Chinese people from 15, 30, 40, 60, 80, from different generations, different regions. Definitely they behave in a different way, without a doubt. However, I would, in my opinion, after 10 years in China, having a Chinese wife, I would say these strategies work with a lot of Chinese people. When working across cultures, you need to think about cultural differences, but you also, of course, need to think about personality and working style. And that's something we're going to go into more depth in future videos. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.